Use the shark style to style dry hair, but on a day 2 hair day like this, I just use it to kind of give it more volume and lift. This will definitely drop a little bit throughout the day, but it'll just kind of keep the hair a little fluffy. Something new I've been trying though with my hair and just my curling routine in general, even with the curling rod, is actually curling towards my face. I've spent like almost a decade having the ingrained rule of always curl away from your face being in my head, and I always do that. But I had seen like a few things online, videos online, of people saying if you curl in, it kind of gives your hair more of like a blowout look rather than a traditional curled look, and I do think it gives a different kind of body to the hair, especially in my front pieces that normally I would always curl away. It's been just interesting to experiment. So I have the left curling wrap attachment on my flex style, but instead of using it for the left side of my hair, I use it for the right. And instead of putting the curler behind it and it curls this way, I put it in front and it curls this way. This one, woo, gives a lot of lift. My face needs a little bit of color though right now, so we're gonna do that. This is the Rare Beauty matte lip liner in the color Humble, and I'm gonna go in with Rosette from Ilia. I mentioned in my 2024 favorites video that blush is the new fixation in my makeup routine, and then this arrived a few days ago. This is from YSL, and inside is some of their new blushes. Look at that. I think that'll go really well. I've never tried anything from YSL Beauty, so this is very exciting. Tip. Oh wow, I barely like touched my brush and I feel like we got some color going. To tap it around also so that my whole face doesn't look like it's pale. So use a miracle, what a little bit of blush and a little bit of lipstick can do. Just brightens everything up. How have you guys been doing though? This time of year is always a very reflective time for me, not just because January as a whole, I think all of us kind of get into that reflective mode because of all this goal setting that we tend to do around the beginning of a new year, but my birthday is also approaching. I turned 28 shortly, which is crazy because that means I'm heading into the last couple of years of my 20s and lots of emotions there, and just like birthday, new year, life gets you all in your cabessing at your head. And I admittedly have felt like I've been slow, the slowest I've ever been to like kind of get into a year. I feel like really this video feels like almost my my start of 2025, because this is like the first time I've even like vlogged in front of a camera normally in a bit. So yeah, I'm just trying to be at peace with that. It's okay if not every year I'm ready to like goal set on day 1, and it's something I've talked about, you know, even years ago, that like, you know, goal setting's not just reserved for January 1st, and I kind of have to take my own motivational reminder there to not allow myself to feel like, yeah, I'm behind, or that something that needs to have like this firm deadline. Obviously I want to figure out what I want this year to mean for me, and I don't want it to just slip by, but I don't need to put pressure to get it done ASAP, right? So trying to be kind with myself, but curious to know what your relationship with goal setting at the beginning of the year has been. Have you already done your goal setting? You're already past that, you're well into your goals, that's exciting. Or are you kind of more in my place where you're just trying to figure that out still? Or are you not planning on goal setting at all for 2025? Or do you have a different approach than goal setting? I don't even think goals are as important right now to me as much as routines are. My routines have just been completely in shambles, so I really want to focus this week on getting back on track, making sure I'm going to bed at a good hour where I can like still have my nighttime routine of like reading, but that I'm not going to bed too late that it then impacts how I feel in the morning. My morning habits, I like to, like, you know, just getting back into the swing of things, grocery shopping, all the things. A lot to figure out, but that'll be a process, and that's not going to happen in just a couple of days, but maybe we'll tackle some of that in this video. How much I am loving my Filofax and Paper Republic lately, because I am. I decided to fill in some items on my declutter sheet. There are some things in this apartment that I just kind of want to work on reorganizing for the start of the year. I typically like always feel like certain areas need a refresh, but one that I haven't done in a long time that I want to do is under my kitchen sink. That's where I have my recycling and my cleaning supplies. and quite honestly cannot remember the last time I organized it, cleaned it, like gave it a good deep clean. So that's on my mission. Not sure if it's gonna be this week or in the next couple weeks. I also want to do my pots and pans cupboard because, again, another one of those places that I can't remember the last time I really gave it a deep clean and organized it, and it's needing it. I also just finished updating my little reading journal in my Paper Republic because I just finished Dream Girl Drama by Tessa Bailey, which I actually found out in stores like 2 weeks before release date, a week and a half before release date. And honestly, I probably would have waited to buy it on Kindle. However, look at these edges, these sprayed edges. And I just think like this is so fun. I also recently got Onyx Storm, the release that I feel like everyone in the book world has been waiting for. And it also has gorgeous sprayed edges. I feel like, yeah, this has become quite the book trend. And I know like it can sometimes feel a little overdone because it seems like it's happening a lot more these days, but also when do you get innovation like this in the book world when it comes to like a regular book? You don't typically see these things. It's kind of been a fun little addition. But yeah, I've read both of these books recently. Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, the third installment in her best-selling series, and I gobbled this up. I felt like I had to read it immediately when it came out because when a release is as big and as massive as a book like this, the spoilers on my Instagram page and my TikTok page are just there's too much potential for it. Don't worry, no spoilers here, but I will say I've heard that the wait for the next book is going to be quite decent because the author's taking a bit of a break. So kudos to her for taking the break, but it's gonna be a long wait. But yes, after the heavier fantasy vibe, I went for something lighthearted with Dream Girl Drama. The storyline in this is interesting because it's a romance between two people who didn't realize that they are about to become step siblings. You can imagine it gets a little messy. I like this one, but I don't think it's by any means my favorite Tessa Bailey novel. I think there's a little bit of suspension of reality with this book, not just because of the interesting storyline, but I can't spoil things, but just a few decisions and characters also that are just a little bit like, huh? How is this possible? Another book I read recently in the nonfiction category is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I feel like this book has been popping up everywhere. It's been a very highly anticipated nonfiction release. And I think like the book, I can say, has a lot of really good lessons. It tackles like the idea of not letting yourself be bothered by decisions that other people are making, even the people that you love the most are making, not trying to change others, not fixating so much energy and time on what other people are doing, and to just let them, and then let yourself take ownership of your own life. So there was a lot of great lessons. It talks about how this theory applies to so many things in work, relationships, friendships, managing stress. It's mentioned at the beginning of this book that this is meant to be easy to read and fun to read and not a scientifical academic paper, which I totally get. But I felt personally that as much as there's a lot of good wisdom in this book, I felt like I wasn't as engaged because it just felt overly simple. And the whole repetition of let them and let me, like these lessons, this main lesson throughout the book, just kind of felt too simple for me. Like I kind of am at the point in my nonfiction reading journey where I like to go a little bit deeper. I want to see more of the studies and the scientific backing and the nitty gritty. I want to get into that technical stuff. And this just kind of felt like it scratches the surface. But that being said, there's one area in particular that I think was so well done in this book, which is talking about friendships. I feel like friendships are so often left off the table when we're talking about, you know, anything related to life. We put a lot of emphasis on career and romantic relationships and family life, but like that area seems to kind of dwindle. And it was interesting to hear her talk about friendships as not just things that evolve and change in your 20s and in your teens, but that honestly are always changing in the decades and decades to come. Usually we're talking about that changing friend dynamic between school years and then adult years, but there is more shifting that happens. So I found like that area a really interesting one to read because it's not something I've seen touched on too much. It was good. There's good takeaways. It's not that I wouldn't recommend it, but I just feel like personally, it's not an outstanding book that I'm going to be like going back to time and time again, even though there's some great value in here and things I think worth hearing. I talked about in an Instagram post a few weeks ago how I'm not setting any reading goals this year. Last year I read 85 books. The year before that, I'm not sure if I had hit 100 or if it was in the more the 90s, but I would say for the past, you know, ever since I've been out of school, so at least 5 years now, I have read around that quantity of books. I do not need to set a numbered reading goal to push myself beyond that. I don't need to be reading 100 or 120 or 150 books a year to be an epic reader. I don't need to be reading 85 books a year. That's a lot of books too for so many people that might be watching this that maybe get through a book a year, or, you know, 5 books a year, whatever it is. Any amount of reading that you can do, that's great. Such a personal thing on what's a good amount, but I don't need to set a number goal, but I think I do want to set a goal to be reading a nonfiction book at all times, which is something that I feel in 2024 I slipped a lot on. But this year I want to adapt that back into my life because I find nonfiction reading such a valuable learning tool. So I think one that I'm gonna tackle next is a really popular one that I can't believe I haven't read before. It's Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I think I want to start this now because, like I said, birthday is coming up, the reflection's happening, and I think a memoir could come in handy. I've heard really great things about it. I'm also determined to do more book content here on the channel, talk about the books I'm reading a little bit more than I did last year. So lots of things that we're already working on here in this video. Look at me starting 2025 goals. The other day I opened this drawer and I was just appalled at what's going on in here. So I'm just gonna take 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes probably, just to get it back into gear. I hate it when I spend so much time just worrying about a task or anticipating a task. Look at this. Why did I put this in here? I thought it was just out of parchment paper, but I'm also out of plastic wrap and pretty much tin foil. There's nothing going on there. But I absolutely hate it when I just constantly am thinking about doing something and then I get in my head about doing something, when if I just did the thing that I'm worrying about or that I'm thinking about, it would take less time and then that energy wouldn't be spent anticipating doing the thing. Does that make any sort of sense? Anyways, this I actually need to use now. Okay, admittedly, this is a little false sense of what this drawer is going to look like because it's supposed to also have parchment paper, tin foil, cling wrap. How am I out of them all at the same time? That's disappointing. We've got my Ziploc bags, my compostable Ziploc bags, my reusable cleaning cloths, some more reusable cleaning cloths, some microfiber cloths, Scrub Daddy stuff. I do have more Scrub Daddy sponges that maybe I could fit in here in the back. I will stand by that Scrub Mommies are the best dish sponge ever. So we're just gonna, these will just stack nicely in the back here. Ta-da, look at that. Took no effort or time at all. I told myself it'd be fine if I ordered from Uber Eats today, only if I spent tonight using the time that I otherwise would have spent cooking, meal planning for the week ahead so that I can do groceries tomorrow with a plan and just getting back on track with my meals. So I got these barbecue cauliflower wings. I did get a side order of fries because I am a weak woman. I want to make more meals at home this year. I want to make healthy meals at home. I also want to make not healthy meals. Just decadent, flavorful, fun time meals that you kind of want to whip out whenever you have people over or when you're hosting something or when you're going somewhere and you want to bring a dish. I want to get into a groove with cooking again. To be honest, this feels like a very idealistic plan because I've got some new recipes in here that I want to try, like homemade ravioli. I really want to make my own pasta because I've seen enough videos on the internet that show me making homemade pasta dough is actually not that difficult. It's just flour and egg, and you put that together in a dough and then you can roll it out and make ravioli, or you can make shaped pasta. But I think ravioli would be the easiest because you're just rolling it out flat and then adding, in my head, a ricotta filling. In theory, that seems easy to do, but I don't know, that could be over ambitious for a Monday night. Just going through recipe books for inspiration. This is Vegan at Times by Jessica Seinfeld. I've only made a few of the recipes from here, but these quinoa patties seem so delicious. So I think I don't know if I have room in it for this week. I've made note of it in my file of facts so that I don't forget about it, but I really want to experiment with doing different quinoa recipes. Another recipe I want to do that I've made many times before comes from the Health Nut Cookbook by my cousin. She's got a recipe for these raw cookie dough bites, basically made, she says to use cashew butter, but I like using peanut butter for it, but it's peanut butter, almond flour, chocolate chips, maple syrup, something else is in there too. Can't remember, but that's why I'm following the recipe. I'd show you a photo, but there's none in this cookbook, which is a shame because they are delicious. And I have been buying a lot of like midday squares, which are like these little square peanut butter chocolate pucks that help like bridge my afternoon, give me a little treat at 2 p.m. that kind of is higher protein and filling and will keep me satiated. But it hit me, I'm like, oh my goodness, why don't I just make those cookie dough bites and prep them for the week in advance? And I think it'd be a little bit cheaper and also a little bit cleaner as well. Not a little bit cleaner because it's a lot less ingredients. I think it'd actually be really interesting this year for me to dabble into making more snacks. I'm not a huge snacker. I joke all the time that I run an ingredient household here. Although I don't want to get in the habit of necessarily buying snacks, I do think having snacks around that I've made and that yeah, help give me a little fuel in the afternoon, especially on days where maybe I do want to skip lunch. That way I'm getting something in me rather than nothing, but then I also know like all the ingredients have gone into it. So not always a practical thing to do every single week, but I think that would be a really great adventure to go on. Anyways, I'm gonna put this on my refrigerator. I gotta figure out my grocery situation tomorrow and get this party started.